Have you ever looked at one of your paintings and just thought something feels off? You can't quite name it, but it just doesn't look complete. Today I'm walking you through why it happens and how to shift from not yet to confidently complete. Because finishing an abstract painting is not always about adding more paint, it's about composition, balance, structure, contrast, rhythm, and so much more, even in the most intuitive work. So let's break down 5 core reasons why a painting might not feel finished and how to fix each one of them. But before we dive into it, hi, my name is Esther Franchuk. I'm an artist, painter, traveler, creative, lover of beautiful things. I make videos about my process, everything around my art studio, tips for artists and collectors, and so much more. So if you're new to this channel, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you will not miss any of the upcoming videos. So number one reason why a painting might not feel finished is actually composition. Because weak composition is weak foundation. It's basically like building your house on the sand. No matter how beautiful the decor and all of the other elements are, it just wouldn't hold together. There is huge misconception that abstract art is random, and it actually doesn't require structure because it's more intuitive and just open-ended, and it is to a degree true, but it even more requires structure because it's not objective, because the viewer is not looking at particular familiar shapes, but what is making the most impact in abstract work is actually good composition, good color story, and the good relationship, good hierarchy of elements and principles of art. So what is even composition? Composition is basically how different elements of your painting are arranged together on the surface of the canvas and how they intertwine, how they collaborate, how they correspond to each other. Composition is having a clear movement for the eye through how the canvas, having those anchors where you would stop, what you would think, having some kind of directional flow through how the surface of the painting, and also a really intentional use of the negative space. So to fix your composition, make sure you have a good directional flow throughout the piece. Make sure that the focal point is not too much in the corner, too much on the side, where it's really just tense and crowded. It has to be arranged according to the golden ratio or the rule of thirds if you want to just have one guideline for your composition. This is a really good starting point to fix your composition. Just make sure the eye travels and it doesn't really get stuck in the weird places. Ask yourself also if your painting has good hierarchy of the elements, where it's a strong compositional center and everything else kind of submits to it. It shouldn't be all screaming at once. It has to be a really clear subordination where some elements are primary and some are secondary, and there's a good relationship and conversation in between them. It's also good to have a clear focal point or couple focal point that work together well in the painting. You want to have one area more dominant that creates more interest, holds more story, more layers, maybe more little details and refinement, and you want to use intentionally on the contrast to it resting space or negative space that will kind of complement and create this like tense and release in your painting, which will make it more sophisticated because you have areas that are more refined and more detailed and just way more loaded with a bunch of different elements. This would be the place where your viewer stops and explores a bit more, but then you have to have those resting calm areas where the eye will rest. So all in all, those two and using them together intentionally would create a sophisticated good painting. Reason number 2 why your abstract painting might not feel finished is no variety equals visual boredom. You need to have variety in everything when it comes to abstract painting. So think of it in terms of thin versus thick, transparent layers versus opaque layers, variety in scale, variety in contrast. You need to have also maybe variety in mediums and materials, that is not just one flat paint layer on the canvas like you painted the fence. Also, this variety or contrast could be achieved through having more textural parts and also more smooth. You need to think also about your edges. You need to have sharp edges somewhere, and in the other parts you need to have softer edges. This creates beautiful tension and variety as well. If everything is the same, the painting will simply start to look flat, even if the colors are really beautiful. Without contrast, there would be no visual story, but just noise. Reason number 3 why your painting might not feel finished is missing the layer depth. Layers are really important in the painting. The more layers you have, the more sophisticated and rich your art will look like. If you only put flat colors in one layer and then you have the canvas peeking through, it would not really look rich and sophisticated. In my personal process, I use 10 to 20 different layers with different mediums, texture, and just like layering and overlapping multiple mediums and layers until it has some visual history that really draws the viewer in and makes it wonder and explore. Which means as an artist you have to be able to work in stages, to sometimes let things dry, sometimes let things just sit and wait until they feel a bit more resolved. Come back to a painting, fix things, overpaint over and over again. Just keep adding to things, keep changing how it looks. Overlapping different layers will build this really beautiful visual history to your piece, and also eventually lead to better understanding of composition. So there are a couple signs that your painting might still need more layering. One of them, you can still see the white of the canvas peeking through. Another one is it feels too clean too fast. And number 3 is transitions in between areas and elements still feel too abrupt and unresolved. Reason number 4 why your abstract painting might not feel finished is because there is no emotion or intention behind it. Sometimes the reason is not technical, but it's purely internal and emotional, and it's simply you just don't know what it is about. You don't know what is the feeling associated with it. You don't know what it makes you feel, and it's leading to you not really knowing what kind of impact you want to make with that painting. What I personally do to kind of have some relationship to the piece, to know what kind of story I'm telling, even if it's a really abstracted and poetic story, I'm trying to think of it, if it would be a landscape or a poem or a song, like what it would be about, what kind of emotion it would evoke. I would try to think of a physical place, something that inspires me. Abstract painting is not an absence of meaning or a story, it's just really different interpretation of it. So it's really good to have some starting point where you can feel you are drawing inspiration for the piece. Sometimes I would try to write some lyrics on the easel. When I'm working on a piece, I'm trying to think of different poems or verses, something that will give me some kind of base to wrap my hand around when I'm thinking of what kind of impact I want to do with this painting. Sometimes just giving a working caption to the piece might help a lot. It doesn't have to result in the final name of the painting or the blurb you're writing for it, but it kind of sets up a mood for you to personally approach the canvas and make those next steps and good choices for this particular piece. Reason number 5 why your painting might not feel finished is you actually believe the myth that abstract art is random. You expect to just throw colors on the canvas and call it a day. Let's get real, there's an elephant in the room. That's the biggest misconception about abstract art, that it's random, that it doesn't require any knowledge or skill. And this is just not right, because abstract art actually requires more skill than any figurative work, because you're not relying on depicting a certain imagery, but you're building solely on the elements and principles of art, which means you have to understand them. Even more than in the representational art, you need knowledge about composition, color harmony, balance, rhythm, and visual storytelling. Back then, in the years of my art school, they used to say that abstract art is the highest form of art because you actually need to have good drawing and painting skills. You need to have a really strong foundations and composition and color, and only then you can even approach and attempt to create an abstract painting, and you are basically deconstructing reality. You basically breaking the laws of art intentionally to create something not objective. Also, if you look at the art history and you would look at famous abstract artists, so some of the names that are really famous and you might know them are Vasily Kandinsky, Piet Mondrian, Jackson Pollock, and Kazimir Malevich. They're actually known for abstraction, but they are studied classical oil painting and drawing, and all of their early works are really realistic and representational, which proves again that in order to create a really good abstract artwork, even if it looks from the outside really simple and really not that complicated, you need to have a really strong foundation in art. I have designed my course Confident Abstract to give you a strong foundation in composition and color story in order for you to build your own sophisticated, beautiful abstracts. I myself actually have received a traditional art education, and in the beginning of my journey with abstract art, I started developing those concepts and ideas of how would all of these principles of art, all of this overwhelming theory would translate really simply into creating better abstracts, because as I said, composition, color harmony, all of it, the balance, the riff, it all goes into it. And in my course, I broke it down into really simple and digestible exercises that will immediately result in you having just way better and smoother, really beautiful abstract painting without being overloaded with theories that you don't know how to apply. I also share with you 18 of my favorite go-to compositional solutions that I found out work perfectly for abstract art, and we also do color studies based on them. But not just that, but you also get to watch my free full painting processes from the very inspiration and beginning to the very final touches. And there is no time lapses, nothing sped up. It's my full honest process. It's the most vulnerable videos I put out there for other artists that tell the whole story of 3 different paintings. They all have different color story, different compositional approach, and different sources of inspiration for them. One is full intuitive, and 2 of them built on specific compositional principles. You can see my vulnerable process just from one artist to another, not just the highlights, but the lowlights and everything in between, my thought process, how I approach the canvas, how I battle through it, how I battle through the middle, ugly stage, how I make those choices one after another to bring painting forward, to really push through creative blocks, and so much more. We also made sure to record every brushstroke of the process so you can really paint along. You're gonna create your own painting based on compositional principles and color stories that we studied before, but as you're watching me paint and as you're watching me go through all of the stages and different blocks, you are creating your own unique pieces alongside me. So if you're interested in creating bold and confident abstract, make sure to check the link in the description box down below, where you can find all of the information about the course. I also have to say, I have received so much positive feedback about the course, and people also have been reaching out and asking if it could be available in different languages, so even more people can learn from me. So we actually right now working on translating the course into 3 languages, which is French, German, and Spanish, and it's going to be available soon. Also, if it's not in your language yet, but you would like to take a course, please feel free to reach out via email, and we will make sure to add your language to the course. If you like this video, if you found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to see more videos like that. Also, if you struggle as well with finishing your paintings and you don't know how to go about, or maybe there's something that you do know and something that helps you in the process, please leave a comment down below. I love reading all of your guys' feedback, and it really helps me to make this channel better. Thank you so much for watching again, and I will see you in the next one.